George, as you said, a big day on Capitol Hill.
It certainly is. A new round of impeachment hearings set to begin, this time led by the House Judiciary Committee. They have just received that 300-page report from the Intelligence Committee making the case that President Trump has abused the powers of the presidency by pressuring Ukraine to investigate his political opponents and by conducting an unprecedented campaign of obstruction to prevent Congress from investigating his actions. Our senior national correspondent Terry Moran starts us off from the hearing room on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, George. Well, this morning, in just a few hours, with the bang of a gavel right up there, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler will begin that next phase of the impeachment process. This panel will begin the solemn task of weighing impeachment charges against President Donald Trump. And they will base their debates on all the evidence gathered by the House Intelligence Committee over the past few weeks under Chairman Adam Schiff.
This is not about Ukraine. This is about our democracy. This is about our national security.
Democrats are laying out their case against Donald Trump in a 300-page report approved by the House Intelligence Committee by a party-line vote last night. The report alleges the president pressured Ukraine to influence U.S. elections by demanding its leader publicly launch an investigation into Trump's rival Joe Biden, and that his administration held up nearly $400 million in military aid as part of that effort. And in a surprise, Democrats also accused some of those closest to the president, including Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, of being knowledgeable of or active participants in the president's scheme. Pointing to this moment, Mulvaney acknowledging in the White House briefing room that there was a quid pro quo.
I have news for everybody. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy.
The report concludes the evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming, and so too is the evidence of his obstruction of Congress.
The president instructed witnesses not to appear. The president used his office and his bully pulpit to try to intimidate witnesses.
Overseas at a NATO summit, the president fired back.
I think Adam Schiff is a deranged human being. I think he grew up with a complex for lots of reasons that are obvious. I think he's a very sick man. And he lies.
Trump also claimed he would be open to some of his top advisors testifying in an impeachment trial in the Republican-led Senate, despite blocking every attempt by the House Intelligence Committee to obtain that very testimony.
So when it's fair, it will be fair in the Senate. I would love to have Mike Pompeo. I'd love to have Mick. I'd love to have Rick Perry and many other people testify. But I don't want him to testify when this is a total fix. You know what a fix is? It's a fix. Just think of it.
Back home, Republicans are standing by the president, issuing their own report.
They're having one big problem, and the big problem is the president did nothing wrong, and they can't prove it.
But Democrats continue to build their case, revealing new evidence uncovered after the last round of public hearings. Phone records between the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and the Office of Management and Budget. That's the agency that controlled the withholding of aid to Ukraine.
Certainly, the phone records show that there was considerable coordination among the parties, including the White House.
Now Democrats say they're ready to move on to the next question in the impeachment inquiry.
The question now is, what does Congress do about this?
And that's what this hearing is going to be about. The panel will hear not from fact witnesses, but from constitutional scholars who will debate the question of whether the president, of what he is accused of, amounts to an impeachable offense. You can expect fireworks because this committee, the Judiciary Committee, is even more divided along partisan lines than the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, one of the most partisan in Congress. Okay, Terry, thanks very much. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, for more on this. And let's start with the report from last night, because as Terry said in his report, there was new evidence, the evidence of these phone calls between Rudy Giuliani and what looks like, most likely, OMB Chair, Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and probably the president himself.
Right. Now, if you read the minority report, meaning the Republicans' report, it would indicate that Rudy Giuliani was basically advising the president sort of broadly on corruption in Ukraine. He was sort of serving as his emissary, but in a legal capacity, an advisory capacity. This would suggest that Rudy Giuliani was leading foreign policy in the area. And that's the key difference here, is if these phone calls can demonstrate that Rudy Giuliani was in fact leading this quote-unquote
in contact with top officials.
Exactly, this irregular channel, that is exactly what many of the witnesses who testified were saying. That is what the Democrats are arguing. And that's why the phone calls are so important, because it separates that role of what the Republicans were saying Giuliani was doing, which is sort of broad corruption in Ukraine kind of advice, versus leading foreign policy, which would be a problem.
We also have the president saying he'd like to see his top aides testify. Of course, he blocked them from going to the House, and that was written about in the report as what they called an unprecedented act of obstruction.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a legal decision, right? To suggest, well, I'll let them testify when it's fair, that's not a legal objection. Up to this point, the reason that the president's closest advisors haven't testified is this claim of executive privilege or immunity from having to testify. The claim of I'll do it when it's fair is not really a legal. And look, as a practical matter, of course, the president's not going to have these people testify in front of the Senate either.
Okay, Dan Abrams, thanks very much. You'll be joining us for our coverage of the impeachment proceedings at 10 Eastern right here on ABC. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.